Hello, my name is Erica Johnson, and today I will be reviewing Rachel Carson's Silent Spring for Class EVSP 498, the Senior Seminar. After a brief introduction, I will cover some background information on Rachel Carson, the main themes in Silent Spring, and some challenges she faced after publishing the book. I will then talk about some current research that supports the themes Rachel Carson presented in her book. That being said, I will move on and explain what we'll be talking about. The purpose of this assignment is to provide current research that supports the popular science book Silent Spring, written by Rachel Carson. After several years of writing and researching, Carson published her book in 1962. While the information she presented wasn't necessarily new in the scientific community, the information was new to society as a whole. Carson was able to use her skillful writing techniques and decades of experience and gathered knowledge to raise awareness and concern with how pesticides were being used in the United States and all over the world. Rachel Carson was born on May 27, 1907 in Springdale, Pennsylvania. She graduated from Chatham University in 1929 and later received her master's in zoology from Johns Hopkins University in 1932. Carson was known as a writer, editor, scientist, and ecologist. She worked for the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries, writing radio scripts, and also wrote natural history articles for a news agency. Carson's 15 years of dedicated federal service earned her the title of Editor-in-Chief for all publications for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So now that I've talked a little bit about Rachel Carson's history, I'll move on to her most famous piece of work, the book Silent Spring. Although Carson wrote throughout her entire career, she only published 4 books. Silent Spring was published on September 27, 1962, and focused on the harmful effects of a multitude of pesticides on the environment. Carson spent a lot of time discussing the dangers of the heavily used and barely regulated insecticide DDT. DDT stands for dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane. Though the chemical was developed in the late 1800s, it was first used as an insecticide in 1939 to kill off disease-curing insects and also to help with insect control in the agriculture industry. The combination of her profound writing skills and a CBS Reports program that aired on national television quickly gained the attention and concern of people all over the world. Unfortunately, she also gained the attention of government officials and both chemical and agricultural communities who relied on the manufacture and use of pesticides. Silent Spring caused such a ruckus that President John F. Kennedy ordered a review of Carson's work by the President's Science Advisory Committee. The review was completed and approved by President Kennedy on May 15, 1963, bolstering Carson's credibility in the public eye. Carson's work is often credited for the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency and increased regulation and control of pesticides. The Toxic Substances Control Act of 1976 fulfilled, in part, one of Rachel Carson's goals. It directed the EPA to protect the public from unreasonable risk of injury to health or the environment. So now that I've covered the basis of the book and the impact it has had on society, I'm going to look at some modern research that supports Carson's book. Carson spoke of the potential for long-term persistence of chemicals in water and soil, and that these chemicals be transferred to non-target species. She also mentioned the potential for resistance to pesticides and a never-ending cycle of applying more intense or higher concentrations of pesticides to achieve the same effect. A journal article published in 2003, almost 50 years after Silent Spring was published, spoke of the permanent effects DDT had on non-target species Drosophila melanogaster, also known as the vinegar fly. The authors found that the same species found on different continents, so the same types of vinegar fly found all over the world, had developed a genetic mutation that made it basically immune to the effects of DDT. The authors also found that the genetic mutations made them immune to other pesticides that had never even been applied outside of a laboratory. One concern is that the other species in the world could develop immunities to current chemical control methods over time and get to the point where they will no longer be effective. The other concern is that we still don't know how many non-target species have been impacted or potentially genetically modified as a result of non-discriminate pesticide application methods. Another topic of discussion brought up in Silent Spring was the potential for chemicals found in DDT to be passed on from one organism to the next throughout the food chain. Carson also spoke of chemical transfers from mother to offspring through breast milk. An example of this in current research is found in individuals who worked on the military ranges on Eglin Air Force Base in Florida in support of developing Agent Orange. Agent Orange is an herbicide that was used during Vietnam to kill off vegetation to reduce food supplies and concealment of troops. It is estimated that 1 hectare of land on the Eglin Ranges received 1,300 times more Agent Orange than what was used on 1 hectare in Vietnam. Range workers and their family members have been linked to leukemia, Parkinson's disease, diabetes, lymphoma, nervous system disorders, liver disorders, and other complications as a result of exposure to Agent Orange. One survey of a contaminated area on Eglin Air Force Base predicted little to no degradation of dioxin contaminants in the soil over the next 70 years. Lastly, a 2003 public health assessment revealed traces of dioxin in the surface waters, subsurface waters, animals, and fish. To further support Carson's idea of the transfer of chemicals from one to another is a study that was conducted on vineyard workers in Italy. The study took hair samples from 20 agricultural workers, 4 of their relatives, and 5 of the individuals who actually conducted the study. The purpose of the experiment was to determine whether or not hair samples could be used as a means to determine cumulative and aggregate exposure to pesticides to the aforementioned individuals. Researchers took samples prior to the season, so before the application of pesticides, and after the season, and documented the type and quantity of pesticides used. The study revealed higher concentrations of pesticides in the hair samples of each person involved in the study after the period of application. So this means basically however those pesticides were applied, it gets filtered through the body and is actually found in the hair. This study highlights the uncertainty and fear expressed by Rachel Carson in Silent Spring. In conclusion, the United States and the world has taken great strides in the control and use of pesticides since Silent Spring was published. Unfortunately, Rachel Carson passed away in 1964, just 2 years after her book was published. Her dedication to her work and her hopes of making a change have come to fruition, and society has started to pay more attention to how it interacts with the environment. Society is still traveling on the deceptively easy and smooth superhighway to disaster, but is looking for the exit that leads to the preservation of Earth. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.